All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to All That Talk Show, where we strive to educate, empower, and entertain. I am your co host, Olivia.
I'm Callie.
And I think Shing is trying to join us, but she's also our other co host. So here at All That Talk, we like to begin our show with something called an act of kindness, and it's really kind of like what it is, right? And we decided to kind of start the show off like that because we believe in spreading positivity, kindness, and love, especially in a time like this. And so, what better way to spread that than to share stories of just that? And so we're going to do something a little bit different today. Usually I'll have all of us kind of go around and share something about or share an act of kindness that we either participated in or that we hear of. And so today we have a special guest coming on board. This person has truly inspired us to really give back to our community. And so I'm super honored and super proud and super happy to bring him on. And so, Callie, if you can bring on Thunsa Hyung from Minnesota to join us to talk to us a little bit about the Do Good campaign that we donated to as our act of kindness.
All right. There he is.
Hello.
Oh, hey, hey, this is my first time.
Welcome to the show. Thunsa.
Hello, ladies. You looking beautiful.
You look good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Likewise, y'all look stylish. I feel a little underdressed every time I'm around you, but
Oh, stop it.
Hey, Thunsa.
There's Shane.
hey,
All right, Thunsa. So we wanted to
every
bring
time
you
I
on.
see you guys, I feel like
What?
He wants to dance.
Yeah.
every time we see you together, I just hear music automatically. Like, hey.
Brings back karaoke night.
Though it's when we're out there and we're all having good time. So
yeah.
Right.
Minnesota knows how to show us what's up,
Mhm.
for sure. All right, so we wanted to bring you on because we saw your post on the Do Good campaign. So I really wanted to have you share a little bit about what that is and how did you come about spearheading that?
Well, thank you. During this time, there's so much uncertainty in so many families and communities, and so, I think you hear there's so much negativity on the news already. So sometimes I think we need to shut that off. And so we came up with this idea, Heal Hmong 2020 concert last week. All these artists from all over the world jumped on board and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's do it." They didn't ask for any money. I didn't tell them, "Hey, we have zero budget, but we're going to make you sound good and you're going to bring love and hope into the homes of Hmong families around the world." And they jumped on board like no questions asked.
That's
And
awesome.
so from that, yeah, so I thought, so I thank you for tuning in. We had a great showing. I thought it was a huge success, comparing that it was our first time. But from that, I was thinking, well, how can we keep this momentum going? Because to continue to spread love, because the concert's only 3 hours for one night. We thought, well, let's continue to launch this into. We have the Heal Hmong, but let's continue to do something else. So encourage people to do good. So from that, so this is a two-part series because from that concert, three business donors each gave me $100 to say, hey, you know what? I want to support the concert. Well, we think, okay, well, we could give each of the artists $20, right? And someone we had this meeting, this Zoom call, reflection meeting with all the artists and the producers, and we said, what can we do with this money? And one of the group members, Misty, said, you know what, Tujo, why don't you send it to the Thai Hmong refugee camp in Thailand where you visited? Because I talked about someday I want to do a fundraiser for that, and everyone in his heartbeat, everyone's like, yep. I said, all those agree, thumbs up, and all the thumbs went up, and I'm like, done. So from that 300, I was so excited. I shared it with my fans, with my followers, and within 24 hours, we like 10 times that. We fundraised another. We actually quadrupled that. Or we made $1,500 just from donations.
Wow.
And then within like 40, like within another 36 hours, we were able to bring that to like 3,000. So now, and thanks to you ladies, all that talk, hostesses, thanks for your generous in-kind donation. We are now, along with many friends, part of the Team Heal 2020. We fundraised over $4,500
Wow.
to go.
That's
Wow. That's
amazing. Good
awesome.
job.
Thank you for showcasing and the Do Good campaign, because it's contagious when people hear that something good has happened, they want to be a part of it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the concert was amazing. I mean, you guys like blew me away, and I felt like it was really what our Hmong community needed. And then to
mhm.
tie that to something, because I know at this time a lot of people are struggling, but I just feel like
Yeah.
our level of struggle is so different from
Yeah.
the people in Thailand, and I just felt like it was just so neat that all the artists came together and just decided like this is what they want to do versus just getting like gains from the concert. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. And
I want to share.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to share with you. Colleen and I were talking, Shane and Olivia, about the spirit of your show, about empowering and educating, and this there's a lot of orphanages all over the world, right? And
Yeah.
there's some that are questionable. This one I want to share with you has so much. I think there's a lot of things with this orphanage that your show is encompasses a lot of the love and hope and kindness that your show is about. And
Yeah.
even like when I say love, I'm talking like the love stories.
Hmm.
This okay. So before people, it's a Hmong, I call it the Hmong orphanage. The actual name is called Ban Ruan Jai,
Uh-huh.
BAHN, then Ruan RUAM, and Jai JAI project. And
Mm.
it's got a beautiful story, a love story. About 40 years ago, this young Thai girl from the city, she was this, grew up in a good home and very affluent neighborhood, went to college and all, and she got a chance to kind of do like to go into the village, the rural villages where Hmong ethnic Hill tribes were, and she
Hmm.
worked with them, and she just fell in love with these. She fell in love with these Hmong villagers, these kids, and she
Oh.
was, I think, English at the time. And then then one of the Hmong guys, I think then the village, she met him and they fell in love. So she fell in love with the Hmong
Sounds
guy.
like a story, a
Right?
movie
It
that they
is.
have.
It is. By the way, I got good news for you. I'm going to save that towards the end. But they fell in love, and she's like, I want to start this orphanage for Hmong kids, because these are kids who literally are malnourished. Some of the kids have no future. They don't have any education.
Mhm.
They're just basically farming. Some of them have lost one or two parents. They're the children of like child neglect, abuse, sexual assault, all that. And literally they would be on the streets just begging if anyone, no one took them in. So she was like the Thai version of Oprah, where she just took these kids in and more kids and more kids, and she's like, let's start an orphanage. And here we are, 35 plus years later. This orphanage has grown.
Wow.
It has graduated over 1,600 kids who go orphans, who've now gone off to become like business people, entrepreneurs, etc. And now I think they're in their second generation, where these former orphans, have
Mhm.
come back to give and to teach and to volunteer at this center too. It's a beautiful story, and
That's awesome.
fortunately, she and her partner are not together anymore. But she's like, you know what? And I don't believe she has children of her own, but she said, these are my children. And her name is Siggeetha.
Oh.
She's this beautiful Thai lady with the big, she's like a
Wait,
modern day Sister Teresa.
wait, okay. So from that movie, the guy and the girl are
Yeah.
together. That breaks my heart, but go on.
So, so when in your show, you guys talk about just sort of following your passion, right?
Yeah.
And this is someone who said, you know what, it's okay. I'm going to continue. And so the monk, I think her husband is out of her life, but she decided to keep this orphan and to run it. And now they have a total of 6 full-time staff. I heard this
Wow.
story. I heard this story about 20 years ago when she came here for a national conference in the States, and I met her. But
Mhm.
I just visited her orphanage for the first time 2 months ago, and
Mm.
oh my gosh, I visited with 11 other cohorts from the States, and 3 of us are Hmong, the rest were not. And these are my these when you see these kids, the tung tai mona, you just want to squeeze every one of them.
Yeah.
And you know when they
Mhm.
do it, like "Tilao, nhớ cho ngọt tilao," and we got there early and we got to see let what they know like so can ja let your jaw let
Oh.
your let
Oh. Yeah.
your they were doing everything. These were little kids with able-bodied adult duties,
Yeah.
trying they
Wow.
live in close compound. Um, it's like and they're taught to farm and plant their own vegetables um and they're part of everything from the cooking, the cleaning. We got there an hour early, so we saw everyone doing their chores, getting
Yeah.
ready for arrival. And the
Mhm.
funny thing is we saw boys sweeping, so it wasn't like boys and girls were equally contributing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to step away because I found myself in tears and I didn't want them to see me cry, because
Yeah.
in these orphans, I saw so many Hmong and Junong stories that we've heard growing up.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I saw, because in a way, behind Hmong, we're kind of like an orphan people, but you want they kind of right. We've been
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yep.
and I saw the spirit that encompassed like who we are as a people. Um, and it was so powerful, guys. I cried. I just saw myself in tears. And so when I came back, I said, I'm gonna do a fundraiser and somehow stay connected. And so thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you.
because that's an amazing story, and I think that's a great way to with the concert and everything. And so, what's the best way that people can donate?
Sorry about so here so people can donate. So with Team Heal 2020, we've I'm telling people to send me the money directly via PayPal or Venmo. My email is tujerxiong@comcast.net. And why? Because then we can send it as a bigger chunk and maybe as part of Team Heal 2020 and the artists and myself and friends. And then I think when you send that as a larger bulk, then I think it also has more meaning. They can know that it's from the Hmong friends here from the States.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the future, I know that some people are not able to donate now. In the future, if you're thinking about giving to people who can really use it, you can go to their website, which is banruanjai.com, BAHNRUAMJAI.com, and you could donate PayPal directly there too. But this is just the first of the many events that I'll do to support them. And I gotta tell you, if you ever get a chance, for Hmong families who ever get a chance to go and visit Thailand, these orphans are so humbled and they're gonna receive you. And so
Mm-hmm.
go visit them and learn. Like it just humbles you to reminds you how precious life is, how precious our families are. We're blessed to be with each other during this quarantine. These kids, they're hundreds of miles from home, from any blood relatives, and so I'm just thankful. I'm so filled with gratitude. So thank you, ladies, for supporting
Yeah.
this and allowing me to talk about it.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And just to be clear, did you say it's at Comcast.net, correct?
Yeah, at Comcast.net. So if you can get it to me probably in the next 24 hours, I'm going to send our final donation amount to them tomorrow. I've already made contact with the executive director. And so they're excited. They have already sent me a thing saying, thank you, Tunsa. I'm like, well, you guys don't know how much the amount yet. So I'm going to do a little fake check, a promotion, but we're going to send it to them electronically. But I'll do that as a big post on my wall as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's a really important thing to remember and stay humble of how far we've come. And I think sometimes, like being an orphan, it hits really close to home too. Right? And like,
Mhm.
So thank you for coming on, Thunsa. We really appreciate it and just kind of,
Yeah,
appreciate your time and your leadership and your community work. It means so much to us. And so we
yeah.
hope that you keep inspiring and keep encouraging all of us to give back to our community. I think that's
Thank
important.
you, guys. Oh,
All
and
right.
one more thing I want to
Mhm.
say, what I forgot to tell you earlier. That movie, the Civiga, the owner, the director, it has been made into a movie. So your parents might recognize it. It's Ping Li and Nong Da. It's a movie about it. So it's actually turned into, so is it, you can watch it on YouTube. I'll send you the clip. You can watch the entire movie on YouTube. It's funny. It's hilarious. It's got all the drama, the love, and then it's actually turning. There's a movie about her life. So
Mm.
I'll send you the YouTube link.
Yeah.
Yes, you can actually watch it.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much for coming
Thank
out,
you.
Sensei. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
So I actually know about that movie. I watched that as a kid. That was a pretty awesome movie.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that's a different name? Is that like the Thai name?
I don't know if it was Thai or
Micey,
Japanese.
right? Isn't it Micey anything?
No, Peewee and Nonda. That was. I think it was a.
That's not the
What?
movie?
Really? You guys don't know about that? That's like a
Oh,
classic Hmong
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I know that.
classic movie. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought it was Micey and Lee Chang.
No.
I guess I didn't know I've heard.
Well, I guess we'll wait for Thunza to send us the link. We'll all go watch it.
Because he did send me the movie cover, and I thought it was I could swear it was Micey and Lee Chang. So I'm not sure if it's like the Thai name or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay.
All right.
All right. So
Back to business.
back to business. So today the topic that we wanted to talk about was embracing being Hmong, and this is something that all of us are Hmong, and it's for me personally, it's been like a long journey. I think it's not something that I've like focused on. I think just like being a daughter of immigrants, it's been really trying to find opportunities and develop myself, my career, my family, and so that's kind of been something that's been alongside of me, but not something that primarily focused on. And so before we jump into the questions I have for today, we do have a guest. We also have another tutor. So we have our first tutor already. We're gonna have our second tutor, and so I'd reach out to tutor because I've seen him post about sort of like the identity thing in another group that we're in. And it really resonated with me. And so then I had reached out to him and we talked, and then you guys talked to him.
Mhm.
It really felt like his story was something that we all kind of want to explore this topic a little bit more deeply with. And so Tudor is currently living in Chicago, and he was born and raised in Wisconsin. And so he has been, in that Hmong environment, but currently living outside of that Hmong environment. And so we are going to bring him on right now.
Woohoo!
Let's see, 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Hey!
Welcome to the
Well,
show.
hi, ladies.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank
Good.
you.
Awesome.
How's the weather there?
What's up?
How's the weather there?
It's actually surprisingly really nice. It's about 70 degrees here, and it's the first time it's been like that warm in 2 or 3 weeks. So I'll take it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is
it's
nice.
really nice. Well, it's a little bit cloudy today, but it's been quite nice. And I mean, my allergies are like up the wazoo because of all the stuff that's blooming. But we are grateful to just have blue skies most of the days. So yeah, but maybe you can just give us a quick intro about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be happy to. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on here. It's truly an honor. There's a lot about this topic that resonates with me, so thank you for inviting me. So a little bit about me. My name is Tudor. I know there's just another Tudor on here.
What a coincidence.
Apparently, it's a very popular name.
I feel like Tudor is like the John of Hmong names, like everyone knows that name.
Yep.
But anyways, I was born and raised in Appleton, Wisconsin. And in 2012, I moved out to Chicago to pursue a dance career, actually. That led me to living in Los Angeles for about a year. And then I moved back to Chicago, so that's where I currently reside. Then I was a professional dancer for many years. And then I made a shift and a pivot to become a fulfillment life coach, actually. So right now, I support people around their identity and becoming the best version of themselves so that they can really go out and accomplish anything that they want in life. So that's a little bit about me. Any direct questions that you guys have?
No, thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
We'll just dive right into the topics. And so you'd mentioned that you're raised in, born and raised in Wisconsin. And so I think, I think that for all of us, growing up, especially like I think for me, like I did kind of go through this part of my life where, I realized I was different. And so whether you want to take that answer or that question first, or Olivia or Shane, um, was there anything, like any time in your life that you felt like, you recognize that you were different and that you're Hmong?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I felt like I don't remember an exact moment when I was like, wow, I'm different because I'm Hmong. But I think growing up, it was quite funny because I grew up in a church family. In the 90s, that was a big taboo, right? And I actually remember growing up just thinking I'm different from other Hmong people, even though I am Hmong. So I had like the opposite issue almost. Like I just remember always I was always hearing my parents being made fun of. They're always getting criticized, and our own relatives would talk about them behind their backs and like laugh at them for being Christians.
Yeah.
And I just remember it being like, wow, like I'm Hmong, but I'm not like that kind of Hmong, So I always noticed there was a little bit of a difference there. I don't think it was until like I started hanging out with like white folks that I really noticed like, well, wow, I am Hmong and you guys are white. I think that was when like it really hit me, like the culture shock. So
Yeah. I think for me, like growing up, I grew up in Merced, where there was a huge Hmong population, and the apartments that we lived in, there was a ton of Hmong people there, or like other Asian ethnicities, and so I didn't really feel like I was different, right? And up until I moved to Oregon, where it's like Mikada and Dausana, though I never really felt that I was different in regards to like my race, but I did feel the difference that I was poor, which is a different topic that we could talk about. Right? But like growing up, I've never felt like I was there's never been I guess an instance or like a experience where I'm just like, God, I'm so different from everybody. I've always felt like growing up in a community where there's Hmong people, I fit right in. And then growing up here, it's like you know that you're different, but not in a sense where it's like bad.
Yeah. So I can totally relate because I actually grew up in Fresno, and we lived in like those apartment buildings where, like everybody was Hmong, and so you saw all Hmong people, you played with all Hmong people. It wasn't until I like these two incidents that happened and they were with people that were not Hmong, and so like Tutor said, it's like that happens, and then you recognize that you're actually different and you're not just with Hmong people all the time. So the first one was so when I was in elementary school, we used to have like the fundraisers where you would sell chocolate for $1. And so we went around like knocking on doors and asking people to buy those for school. And we had, I still remember, like even thinking like today, I still get a little bit scared because so imagine it was like me and my friend walking down the street, and then all of a sudden there was this little kiddo boy, like running in front of us, and I mean he was probably like middle schooler, so bigger than us. So there was this little kiddo boy running in front of us, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is where I get beat up. Oh, I'm gonna get hit in the face. And I just remember being so scared. But then there were these Gada or adults that showed up and had those boys apologize to us. And I just remember being so scared. But that happened, and then we had something else that happened. So um, we had family that also lived in a different apartment building, and so they had probably like at one name or something where there was a lot of Hmong people that came over and ate. And I remember like just playing with the kids, and this is when I was still 8 or 9, and so playing with all the other kids, and then all of a sudden there's this Gada girl like coming into the apartment, like the kind of like the outside of the apartment, so not into anyone's apartments, but just like coming into the apartment, and there's all these other Mikada girls, and they were driving, and so I'm thinking they were probably at least like high schoolers, and so they like came in, and started like stripping this Mikada girl, like all her clothes and beating her up. And I just remember like there were like Hmong adults there standing, like just watching. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like this girl's getting like, she was completely naked by the end that the other
Oh
girls
my
were done
God.
with her.
Is Hmong the one that got beat up?
What was that? No,
Oh, it
they're
was Mika.
yeah, they're both in fat. And I just remember feeling like I can't believe that. And then of course the other girls like drove away, and so some of the adults gave her some clothes to put on because she was naked. And I just remember feeling like I think like the contrast between those two stories of like here are these Mika adults that are able to discipline, like some other kids, and then there's like small adults that are so scared of like maybe getting, like people coming back and, doing bad things to them. But I just remember feeling like, I can't believe that we were so scared of, kids, right? Essentially high schoolers are kids. And that made a really big impact on me of like, just the fact that I felt like, as Hmong people, we're afraid and I think for good reasons, right? We're in someone else's country, probably can't speak the language very well, poor, and so. But that was probably the first time that I recognized that there is a difference between being Hmong and a person that born and raised and don't look like me here.
Yeah.
Wow. So for me, my earliest memory of being different was when I was in third grade. I just remember that every week all the Hmong students would get pulled out of class for ESL and have a Hmong teacher assistant kind of just review the materials with us to make sure that we understood what was being taught in class. And I just remember always wondering, like in the back of my head, why is it that it's just the Hmong students that are being pulled out? And so that was my earliest memory of realizing that we were different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was definitely, I was in ESL, like all through grade school. So I totally recognize that. And it was like, in California, I was definitely that way. And even when I moved to North Carolina, was working with like English and just, feeling completely different. Because ESL just, I don't know how it made you guys feel, but it definitely made me feel like I was, stupid, even though it's not.
Yeah. And it makes me question, like, because I feel like even now, I don't, God, like, I would like to think that when I was like that young, I feel like my English was good. I was, exceeding. I was doing a lot better than some of my other classmates were, but I still had to attend it as a requirement. And I just never understood the reason why. And I think that's like the same thing with my kids now. It's like, do they have to put that many bodies in there for them to get funding? Is it a funding? I don't know.
Wait, the kids are in ESL?
Yes, girl. And
I feel like that's like profiling.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if they have to have like a requirement for that for them to get funding. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. And so do they just put people in there because of their, that they're not Mika? I don't know.
I think it's just the fact that if you speak a secondary language or you have a primary language that is not English at home, you're automatically asked. Because I remember when I registered Sophia for elementary school, when we switched schools, that was one of the first questions they asked me was, could they put her in ESL or they would have to test her out of it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But Linda mentioned that it actually is definitely due to funding. So there's our answer to our question.
There you go.
I feel like I had the opposite problem once again. When I was in the fourth grade, like we had to take a test to see like how good our English was, and I was the only person that graduated from ESL. And I remember like they gave me like a coupon book for like $5 at Burger King as like a prize or whatever, and I was so sad. And I went to my ESL teacher. I'm still friends with her. Her name was Heather, and I was like, "Please let me back in ESL."
And here we are, like, we don't want our kids in there.
All my friends are Hmong though, so like I was like, please let me back in ESL. You can have this $5 coupon book back. I don't even need my Happy Meal. That was
too funny.
So I had the opposite issue.
That's so funny. So speaking of which, so then, as you know, like that experience with being a kid. So I'm curious to see, like during your teenage years, like if you ever experienced any time where you didn't want to be Hmong. And so when Olivia said, talked with about poverty, like that was big for me because I associated being Hmong with being poor. And I remember during the summers, and probably this was probably in high school when I recognized that we were actually poor, because everybody else is poor too. You didn't realize that you were poor, right? Because nobody had more than you, and so it wasn't until high school that I started recognizing like we are poor. And during the summers, all my friends would go, all my Mika friends would have summer camps. They would go and learn these new things and do these new things. And for us, like my summer wasn't like that. My summer was like, not Jay, trying to find something to do, right? Like
Watch TV all day.
yeah. And so like that's when I, felt like I actually didn't want to be Hmong, because being Hmong to me was being poor and not having the same opportunities, like, like not, going to Disneyland or Disney World, not doing any of those things. And so I'm curious to see if you guys ever had similar experience as a teenager, or maybe it's just me.
Well, for me, I've always been an avid reader. And so I remember when I was around 11 or 12, I would read stories about strong, independent women who were had their own career, they were opinionated, and I thought to myself, like, gosh, this is like who I would want to be as a woman. But it was definitely a cultural clash with my family just because my parents are really traditional in terms of my mom wanting to raise me to be that perfect wife, right? And so I just remember waking up every weekend right at 7 a.m. My mom would wake me up and she'd be like, okay, well, you need to wake up and learn how to cook because, you're going to be you're going to be a wife one day. You need to know how to serve your husband. And I just remember having so much resentment, like, gosh, like, that's not what I want to be. I don't want to be married and then just serving my husband, which I do now. So, but when I was a teen, I really, I was very rebellious, and I just remember like I don't want to be Hmong. I don't want to be a Hmong wife, and so I definitely didn't want to be Hmong during that time of my life.
Cool.
I think a lot of women can probably relate.
I actually remember, and this was like it happened way before like my teenage years. Like it was like when I was 4 or 5, I think. I actually remember like my mom was crying because like a bunch of like drunk Hmong guys like had like said something to her. I think one of them even hit her. And I just remember there was like we were sitting. My mom was sitting on our swing set in our backyard, and I was just standing there holding her hand, and I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, like I made the choice of being like, Hmong guys in particular are really like crappy people, and they disrespect women, and I don't ever want to be like that. I refuse to be that. And so for a long time, like even before I realized it, I had put into my brain, the subconscious brain, that I was never going to be a Hmong guy growing up. And you can see how that impacts someone growing up in general with their own identity. But I remember like that moment very vividly.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was then when I was like, I always hung out with Hmong people anyways, just because that's just what happened, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was introduced to. But like it was during, I just remember like I was like, I don't want to be like a Hmong person. I don't want to like grow up drunk and hitting women and whatever. And that was like a big deciding factor for me and my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember if they were those like uncles, like actual family, or were they just like associations with family?
They were relatives. I don't remember exactly why we were over there or like exactly like the whole situation. I just remember like my mom took me because she wanted somebody to walk there with her, and then next thing you know, like something happened, and then she's crying, and I'm just sitting there like, or standing there like, I don't know what to do right now, but this sucks. Like, why would people do this to my mom? You know?
Yeah, I think my experience is very similar to yours, Thujar. I think though I don't ever remember or recall having a feeling of like I don't want to be Hmong, but I hate the situation that I was dealt with. And I hate the way people treated my mom. And I hated the feeling of like being a girl and not being able to stand up for her. And I hated the way that people just treat her in general. And like whenever I say something, I'm like labeled all of these names because of that. And I mean, that still happens today. And I still hate it and I fight it every day, right? I'm still trying to like understand the reason why people do the things that they do. Why do people treat people the way that they do? And it tends to be like the older generation. The younger one, not so much anymore. I think we're trying to, progress forward. But for me, it's not really like not feeling like a Hmong. I've always been proud of that, but there are certain situations that's happened where I'm like, I don't agree with it, and I have really strong opinions about it. But I've never taken that and say I don't want to be Hmong because of it. So it's a little different for me, I guess. It's just looking at it differently and saying I don't like this situation, and I don't like how people are treated, but I've never questioned me being Hmong.
Yeah, I think I always had a thing about like how Hmong people treat each other, and that's
Yeah.
a story. Like I'm not saying that's fact or anything.
Right.
Like when I was a teenager too, sophomore year, I dated a Hmong girl, and we had a bad relationship, bad breakup, and when that stuff happens, like your friends choose sides, and all of my friends were like she was like super hot, so they like chose her side,
Yeah.
so that they could like hook up with her.
Yeah.
And I remember like I started like hanging out by myself. Like I would go to school dances by myself, like stuff like that. And that was when like white people took me in, and they were just like, hey, come hang out with us. Like, you're part of our tribe now, even though we barely know you and we just know you from class. And like for me, what that taught me was like I guess I hated the idea that like I needed to fit a certain standard.
Yeah.
I hated the idea that like it was always like one or the other. You choose, like if we like her, then we don't like you. If you whatever, right? But when I started hanging out with like we got folks, it was like whatever you believe, whatever you choose to think, that's fine as long as you're a good person.
Yeah.
And I think that's like another thing that drew me away from like really hanging out with Hmong people, because I was just like, and I feel like I might get a lot of crap for this. But like I personally felt like it was very narrow-minded, like it was very like if you don't think the way we think, then we don't like you. And being like hanging out with like white people allowed me to free that up, and it allowed me to challenge my paradigms and the way I saw the world. And honestly, like I think like I love that I think the Hmong community and like generation now is like grabbing it and shifting as well. It's beautiful. But at that time, it wasn't happening. At the time, it was very like black and white, this way or the highway.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that really drew me away from the Hmong community.
Yeah, I definitely feel like at least like I grew up in North Carolina from like in a very traditional family, and so I totally understand that narrow-mindedness. And I mean, there's like this box that you have to kind of fit in, and when you get out of that box, you're automatically deemed something else, and you kind of get pushed to the outside, I mean, even stuff like, like we talked about earlier, like coloring your hair, right? It's like if you color your hair, you're automatically labeled as something, and people look at you differently all of a sudden. And so I totally get that narrow-mindedness, but I, like you said, I think that, having lived, like for a longer time now in the US, I think that a lot of this generation is accepting and is open and is trying to figure out what being Hmong looks like, in terms of keeping the traditional, but also knowing that we are in a different country and we are evolving as a people. And so so I mean, we definitely all have different stories, but I think that knowing each of us, we got here somehow. And so I'm really curious to hear about just if there was a pivotal point in your life where you thought, I'm grabbing hold of who I am as a Hmong person. Shane, takers?
I don't know. So I think for me, it was when I started my real estate career. I don't know if you guys heard of Brian Buchanan. He's a real estate coach also the fact that we're Hmong.
Shang, I can't hear you, Shang.
Oh, can you guys hear me now? Why don't you guys move on? I'm so sorry. I'm having connection issues.
Okay.
I thought it was just me having technical difficulties.
Good technology nowadays, right?
So intently, and I was like, I can't say anything because I can't hear anything.
I'm gonna dial the Hmong back in. And
Okay.
if you guys can't
Okay.
hear me, then just move on.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, the pivotal point for me was when I went and got my undergrad. I had met a couple of different people in there, and there was this classmate of mine who was in a pretty high position in a hospital organization, and he didn't have his undergrad degree. And I was always so curious on how did you get in those positions, or how did you get in the positions that you are in now, right? Because for me, it's like I took an entry level position in a healthcare organization just so that I can grow and develop my skills. But he was already like up there without a degree. And so I think for me, realizing that that's kind of what was missing for the Hmong community in general, at least where I was from. We didn't have a lot of successful Hmong people mentoring us and really helping us grow our network and understanding how important that is. It's about who you know. And so I think for me, that was a pivotal point on just kind of realizing that, man, we are so behind compared to other people. And if we don't change, or if no one really steps up and say, hey, we really need to change, we're going to still be where we are 10 years, 20 years from now. We're not going to go anywhere. Our people are still going to be behind. We're not going to be as progressive and advanced. And so I think for me, just realizing how important networking is. And then the other pivotal point for me was coming back from moving into, my husband and I moved to San Diego in early 2008, and we came back and we attended the New Year, and there was like no Hmong performers anymore. Barely. And it's kind of like, where's our culture going? It's dying. There's no one doing anything anymore because everyone's like married, right? They've gone off and gotten married. So it's really the next generation down, and it's super quiet. There's, our New Year's like super boring. And so I think just like realizing, like, if we don't do anything now about it, my kids, if you have kids, your kids, they're going to not know who they are. And it goes back to that identity issue where like they don't understand where they come from, what is it that they are. And so I think for me, it's just realizing all of that and channeling what I can and trying to learn as much as I can and really push forward and preserve what's good that we want to keep.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned about, like coming to the New Year and not seeing, performances. Because when I see like a young person like twerking, or I haven't seen young people, but when I see the younger people doing that, I really that it's just so refreshing to see.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of our generation, and I'm not going to say a lot of our generation, I'm going to say me. I feel like I've kind of turned away from, the Hmong culture. And so I definitely feel like, and I mean, I guess I do see that too. And so then now we have like our kids generation who could completely lose everything, right? Because we've decided, oh, well, that's like or whatever,
Yeah.
And so I definitely agree that needs, like we need to be able to retain some of those very important things, and some of those, like earlier today I went to Fubon and I saw like those the boat for like the yeah. So like when right, you like move and you find these boats or whatever, and so I just like was just messing, and I had posted something about how like child labor is illegal and, now that there's all these boats. But I mean that even stuff like that, right? Like the act of like coming together, if you're traditional and like folding boats for like someone who's passed, like there's a lot of these little things I think is important to retain. But so my pivotal moment was actually becoming a mom. So I have two kids, and So probably for a lot of my 20s, I spent my time just working in my career and like myself. And then when I became a mom, I had these two kids that were mixed, and I felt like they're gonna straddle this line of like being not, and again, creating stories. I know these aren't true, but in my mind, I felt like that they were going to have to straddle between not being, 100% Hmong or 100% Nika, right? And so I just needed to be sure that my kids knew like who they were as Hmong people. And that's not to say that I'm doing a great job at it. I think that that's like being a mom. That's just a continuous work.
It's a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Challenge.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
that is one thing that I think some of the things I do now is what I want my kids to like remember of why it's important to remember who you are as a Hmong person, so that when you are older, you can say I'm Hmong and this is my background and this is my people, but I'm also Mika and these are the things that that I'm about, and so becoming a mom was pretty pivotal. Shane, you're a mom too, so I'm curious, like, was that a big moment, or did you have another pivotal point?
I think for me, it was more of when I started my real estate career. Um, One of the coaches that I listened to is Brian Buffini. He's a real estate coach, and something that he said to me that was really pivotal to me was that just being myself is good enough. And it was a way for me to embrace myself, embrace my culture. I don't know about you guys, but kind of what um, Dunza Shong said earlier was, I had to clarify that, was that, being Hmong, we don't have a country. And so it was really hard for me to embrace being Hmong when I was younger because, people would ask us, "Oh, where are you from?" And I would say, "Oh, I'm Hmong, but where are you from?" And I would say, "I'm from Laos." And they would say, "So you're Laotian, right?" Do you guys get that? All the time. And so instead of trying to explain what is Hmong, who we are, I would just say, "Yeah, I'm Laotian," because it was just too much to explain to them what is Hmong, who we are. And so when I started to embrace that, and then also realizing that I should be proud of who we are, our history, the story of why our parents came here from the United States, our pivotal role that we played in the Vietnam War, like that's something that we should be proud of. And so when the coach said that being myself is good enough, it really made me just reflect on my life, who I am, and just being proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's yeah, I've certainly been asked that question, and it's like, okay, we can't, this isn't like a oh yeah, such and such, right? This is a, okay, let's sit down and draw the map. Tell you like we actually, we're like in China, but I'm not Chinese, and then all so it's a struggle to like have to explain that, and it's not an easy thing to just like
Well, yeah, I think for me, I mean, I've definitely people have asked me that question before, and I remember like in high school, someone had asked me that, and he's like, "So does that mean that you're Thai?" And I said, "No, that's like a Thai person being born in America doesn't make them white. It makes them Thai American, right? And so just because you were born in Laos doesn't mean you're Laotian. If you're born in Thai, doesn't make you Thai. You're still Hmong, right?" So it is a really tough question or answer to give when so
I used to like say like I'm like the Jewish people. We have no country, but we don't identify as Thai, right? We have a different culture, but so that's what I used to always kind of say, and people be like, okay, so yeah.
I always just said we were like nomads that moved around Asia. We from China to Laos, and like we lived in like the mountains, and like like we don't actually like own the land, but we live there. And usually in that case, people are like, "Oh, that's interesting," rather than like, "But what do you mean?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way I go about it now. I used to have this big thing where I would just lie and be like, "I'm Chinese." Like you get sick of it. But like I think there's like something really empowering about just like telling people. I always tell people too, like so my culture is an ethnicity, but not a nationality. And usually then people are kind of like, whoa, how does that work? But it's like, you can't tie us down to one spot. That's really how it works, you know? And I think that gives people like, it shakes up their brain a little bit, like where they don't understand it yet, but they challenge a little bit more of like how they identify others based off of where they come from, you know? And I think like that's a tactic that I've used and that I found it to be pretty empowering. And it shifts the conversation where the person is no longer guessing who I am or what I am, but they're more still questioning themselves like, why is it that I even care, or why is it that I'm struggling to comprehend this?
Yeah.
So it puts the responsibility back to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point that you bring up.
Yeah. But regarding like embracing the Hmong though, like to your question, Callie, I think it's safe to say that a lot of us struggled with identity growing up. And you know, I actually like didn't embrace my identity as a Hmong person until I like was at rock bottom and I really did not like who I was as a person. And it wasn't until I got into coaching that I realized like I needed to clean that up, you know, and it like I had to like not only like clean it up but actually empower it. And something that helped me, and I hope that this helps anyone who's listening who may have a struggle with their own identity as a Hmong person, is like realizing, you know, just because you're born Hmong, it doesn't mean that you have to identify with it. It's a choice, right? Like it's a choice that we get to choose. Like, yeah, it doesn't stop the fact that you label yourself as Hmong, because like that's unfortunately the paradigm that we live in the world. But we get the choice as to whether or not we empower the fact that we're Hmong, or do we just want to keep running away from it? Yeah. And choosing to be Hmong versus just being like, I was born Hmong, like it gives you that much more power to embrace identity. And that's something for me that shifted the way I showed up. And for like when I was able to do that, like that's when I was able to start like owning the fact that I was Hmong. That's when I was able to start forgiving people who had, you know, done the things that they had to my parents and to my mom and, you know, to me even. So I think that's like a pivotal moment there, just realizing that for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, it makes me think about, you know, like how sometimes if you start doing certain things and then people are like, oh, that's like what Mika people do, you know, or that's like what Kedu people do. And it's like, I know, but I'm still Hmong. I just like doing those things. You know, I think Hmong people, right? Like we need to stop feeling like, okay, only Hmong people do these things. Only Mika people do these things. Only Kedu do these things. Only May do these things. You can be like, I mean, it's so wide open and nobody, you know, like owns like what that means or like what you choose to do. So
well, I think you you know, like I think what we were saying earlier about how like how men treat women, or like how we label Hmong people as like drinking problems, but it's like everybody got drinking problems. Like they got drinking problems, Kedu made whatever. Like there's, you know, there's always something about every, you know, that's relatable. And so I think you're right. I think instead of labeling yourself as like just that, it's like, no, everybody does that, you know. Like everybody, you know, either way you or like I said, there's always a bad apple in every family, right? So it's not just Hmong people, right? But it's just that big Hmong tradition. And so it's like, oh my god, like it's this big thing, but really it's like people do it everywhere, you know.
And I think it gets a little dangerous when we start putting like, because there's a label of being a Hmong person, right? But a label doesn't necessarily mean a box. And I think people put that together where they're like, if you're this label, that means you fit in this box. And that's not necessarily true. That just means you have this label and you bring it with you to other boxes.
Right. That's an interesting point that you bring up, is that why is it that Hmong people tend to put ourselves in that box? Like, if you do this, then you're Hmong. If you don't do this, then you're not Hmong. Or you know, like my family, they make fun of me, right? Shang just became Hmong because she listens to Hmong songs now. Like, I wasn't born Hmong. I'm not Hmong anymore. Or I'm not Hmong because I don't listen to Hmong songs, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, do you think of, I mean, and this is actually like, I don't know, but like, do you think it might be because like a lot of Hmong people are looking for identity still. So
Yeah.
like the best way to do it is to put ourselves in a box and to be like, so Hmong people do that, we don't do that, but we do this. Like, and like that subconsciously allows us to feel better about our identity, and like at least we kind of know like where we are and like where we stand. Like, do you think that might be a factor?
I think a part of it, but I think that people in general, like, so this spans across like not just Hmong people, but I think, you know, like most people, right? Like when we meet somebody new, we're trying to feel them out. We're trying to figure out who they are. And so then we automatically say, okay, this person is this, so they do this, right? I mean, Mika people do that to me, right? They're like, oh, I'm Asian, so I must be like submissive and you know, whatever that they think with like an Asian woman is, right? And then they put you in that box, and then you do something, whether that's like speaking your mind or being blunt, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is, you're not like the typical, you know, Asian woman. It's I think that, you know, I think people in general do that, trying to like box people in. I think it's just, you know, Hmong that we feel that so deeply, you know, whether someone's offended us or said something that's hurtful, or put us in a box, you know, because I think, I mean, speaking of just identity, you know, like I feel like I want to be seen for like everything I am, not just like a Hmong woman, right? But as like a professional, as a mom, as, you know, like all these other titles that, you know, come with me. But, you know, I want to be seen for those things. And I think, yeah, sometimes it's nice to break out of that and not be tied down. So I think it's, you know, more than just, you know, that only Hmong people do this. I think that people in general kind of do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's human nature to feel like we have to like somehow figure it out, you know, like put things like in categories.
Yeah.
And I think that like, yeah, and I agree, that's a human nature thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's funny that you say that, Kelly, about like being seen for all that you are, and because I remember I had a conversation with an elder person about like community work and wanting to do different things. And I remember this person telling me that if you want to be seen as either and your words are powerful, if something comes out of that first, before your own Hmong community will support you, which is out of this world for me personally. Because I think like, you know, like you would think, why would you not want to support something that I would want to do that supports the Hmong community specifically, right? So I don't know. I mean, that may be a different topic that we.
That's a whole. I know.
Probably want to dive into, because that like just threw me. I was just so surprised by that comment. I'm just like, that's so crazy. So you're telling me that I have to go do all of these things for other people first before you could even find me as a valuable person, because either A, I'm a woman and I'm Hmong, or that's just maybe how it is in general. I don't know. That's a different thing to explore. But I think it's funny you should say that, because it's like we do want to be seen for everything that we are and everything that we do, because those are things we're passionate about and we're proud of. And, you know, you would think that your people would support you. But I think just after hearing that comment, sometimes it makes me wonder, are we really progressing, or are we still kind of in that narrow-minded mentality, you know?
Yeah, that is a whole nother topic that I definitely want to explore and talk about, and I won't say anymore because I'm gonna start going off. But I definitely, so for this last question, it's really, you know, like, how are you embracing being Hmong currently? And I see this as kind of a, you know, like you kind of progress, and sometimes you kind of go back a little bit. So it's not this, you know, where like, okay, I'm not feeling Hmong, and bam, I'm Hmong now, right? And like all good, and like nobody can say anything that messes with my head, because I still feel like sometimes I'm like going along, right, and someone says something that triggers, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm back here, and I don't know how I feel about my identity. And so I'm curious to see, you know, like how you guys are embracing your identity currently today.
I can go first. I mean, I think for me, it's just the continued understanding the culture in itself, because I think it's very complex, right? And especially because I'm still very traditional. So I think it's for me, it's just really trying to understand and asking those 5 whys, right? Like, why do we do this? Well, why? Because because I'm really trying to dig down and understand, why do we do it? Is it because something happened 100 years ago and they just implemented that, or is there truly a spiritual thing that's attached to it that we have to? And who made that up anyway, right? And so I think it's just really trying to understand and continue to ask those questions, and so then I can pass the important things that I feel is right on to my kids. And then I think continue doing community service work for our Hmong people, so then we can thrive together. There's no reason for me to or you don't give back. Like, when one win, we all win, right? And so at least that's how I see it. And so it's like, if I learned something that I feel is powerful and can benefit our community, why not share that information, or why not make a movement to make it happen for everyone else? And so I think just to continue to be there for our Hmong people, to continue to learn about the culture, maybe learn to speak Hmong a little better, so you hit when you speak. So yeah, I think that's how I'm going to continue embracing it and just really try to make it a better place for my kids.
For me, as a parent, I feel like embracing Hmong currently is just teaching my girls to be proud of their heritage, who they are, knowing about their history of how we came to the United States, and showing them some of the values of being Hmong that we have, like, for example, family, right? Just teaching them the importance of love and family, and what is being Hmong.
Mm-hmm.
I think for myself, there's a lot to go off of with that.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see being Hmong is, like I mentioned earlier, like, there's a way to, like, I'm Hmong because I was born that way, or you could choose that label for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like every day choosing to be Hmong powerfully, and at the same time not defining you by a label, right? There's a difference between a label and how you identify with the label.
Mm-hmm.
I can say I am Hmong without needing to identify as all of this other
Everything
stuff.
else.
Like we were saying earlier, the boxes in a way.
Yeah.
But I think like the way I've been going about it, and the way I will continue going about it, is like, how can I be the bridge for the future generation of Hmong people?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's more so of looking forward rather than looking backwards. I know, like, there are lots of times when I do look backwards, and there's pride in how much we fought for and our own history. There's a lot of pride there, but there's also a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, we wallow in that for a little too long. At least I found myself doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized, for me to fully embrace it and support the culture to move forward, it's about what is next. It's about, like, okay, so if that wasn't working, what will work?
Mm-hmm.
It's about, like, okay, so you are Hmong, but that doesn't actually necessarily, like, mean anything unless you let it mean something. So
Yeah.
what do you want it to mean about you?
Mm-hmm.
Giving people the power to choose their identity regardless of the label, I think, is something that I've been, doing to support a lot of people around, like, the Hmong community, around identifying, because when we think that there's a pre-existent like, definition of what it means, like, then we have to go looking for the right answer, and there's really no right answer, right? It's just what's real to us.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, just supporting people to, like, identify, like, what is real to you, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no one answer. So
Yeah. Speaking of wallowing in pain, I'm a wallower in pain. I just love, I don't know. I guess I feel like there's so much that happens when you're, like, able to bond with someone who's in pain. And so I would say that my embracing my belong is actually wallowing in that pain. And so I do something called the Story Cloth Shop. And one of the series that we started is called the Thread series. And so that's symbolic because of what that means for me for, like, a story cloth. So when we look at story cloth, right, there's all these threads that interweave together, and they tell us the story, whether it's crossing the Mekong, or whether it's, like, people working on the farmland, or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But all of these threads are, for me, stories, and I just love people's stories, especially those that are painful, because I feel like those are the things that move people, and I feel like this generation definitely needs something that moves us. I think that there's a lot of things that we need to be mindful about and be reminded of. And for me, that's like remembering, all the people that came before us, all the people that struggled, so that we can be here today. And so I'm definitely that's how I feel like I'm embracing my Hmong is to just be reminded of all the things that has come before me and all the pain and all the suffering, and that's what kind of drives me today to kind of retain that, because I think the longer that we live here, right, it's so easy to like assimilate and that's not to say like that if that's your choice to assimilate and kind of leave like your Hmong behind, that's a different story. But I think for me, where I am, it's just that I do want to remember, and especially all my grandparents that have passed away. And so I think hearing other older people's stories have really moved me and just helped me to kind of keep my focus on using who I am as a Hmong person to give me strength to do all those things I want to do in my life. So anyways, but I'm using my pain to help me in my future. So
Well, it doesn't sound like it's wallowing so much, right? It sounds like more like you find empowerment
Yep.
it's not like sitting there crying about it. It's like there's that and there's right.
Absolutely. I think that we've kind of explored this a little bit, but I wanted Tudor to kind of give you a chance to just talk a little bit about what you do. It sounds really interesting, especially when you say a fulfillment coach. That's a little bit different from because I think I hear a lot of life coach. I know that's like I listen to a lot of life coaches, but maybe you can just kind of give us a little bit about what you do and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a fulfillment coach. It's basically like a life coach. I just try to stay away from life coach terms. But I support people to really, the way I like to put it is own the giant that they are. And a lot of it comes from my own history of like being Hmong, as I've shared, and like kind of like having a hard time to own our identities. So basically what I do is I support people to identify who they are, the best versions of themselves, and not so much from a place of like discovering it, like it pre-exists, but from a place of getting to create it the way you want it to be, and to empower you that way. And the question I always ask is, what could you do as the best version of yourself? Now imagine what could the world do if everyone was the best version of themselves every day, And that's what I support people to do. I know there's a lot of people who are up to so much, who are so ambitious, who want to like make a difference in the world or make a significant difference in their own lives. And there's like this imposter syndrome where there's like this, I'm not good enough, or there's a lot of like the mental challenges that we have to break through and like the barriers. And that's where I come in, and I support people to overcome that. But yeah, I mean, how you can find me, tudorlee.com, just my name, tudorlee.com. You'll find all of my coaching information there. And that's, or if you want to add me on Facebook, I'm always happy to connect with everyone on a personal level as well. That's just tudordigitly.com, and I'm the only one with that name. So you won't be confusing the tutors like today.
Yeah, it was much easier to find you on social media with the digit in there.
Yeah. I was like, part of me wants to like take that off and just go with Tudor Lee, but there's so many names like that out there, right? So it definitely keeps me distinct and makes me easier to find. So
Agreed.
keeping it on for that purpose. But yeah, thank you so much again for having this. Thank you so much for what you ladies are up to, and the the awareness you're bringing, the paradigms you're shifting, and just having these conversations that I deeply feel like need to be had. Growing up, I wish that I would have had powerful women, especially like powerful Hmong women, have these conversations for me to like get a better understanding as well. So I do acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for coming on and just being open and honest. And I feel like we could probably we're a little bit over time, and I feel like we could probably talk for like another hour. Right? Like we are, it just seems like it passes by so fast because of just the depth that we could really explore it further. But I am glad to, have gotten to know your perspective, and your thoughts and
your experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for the authenticity and the vulnerability you all bring.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to all that talk. We hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to our journeys and embracing being Hmong, and how these experiences have really impacted and shaped us for who we are today, but also realizing that this identity is a choice. And sometimes we take 2 steps forward, sometimes we take 2 steps back, but that's totally okay. And, Hmong people shouldn't just be put in a box, but, it's just embracing who we are. And so we also want to give a shout out to all of our fans. We have had over 1,000 likes and followers since we launched All That Talk. And so we're going to be doing a giveaway, so please stay tuned for that. And also, our next episode will be on May 2nd. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, Vincent, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much again for inviting me. Have a great one.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.